All right, guys, welcome back. As you can tell, I am in a different spot. Funny story. So I was recording this part of the church service earlier today in my office at the village, and the phone or the battery on my phone ran out. So I didn't have enough battery to record it. So now I'm at home recording it. So I get to start all over. I was only about 7 minutes in, but it'll be a little different. That'll be okay. It'll be still about the same as it was before. But let's dive into this. So we're reading from Mark 5:21, starting at verse 21. Hey, I'm in Matthew. That's not what I want. I want Mark. Here we go. Talk amongst yourselves. All right, now I got it. Mark 5:21. Jesus got into the boat again and went back to the other side of the lake where a large crowd gathered around him on the shore. To start with, I should say that this story happens in the middle of a bunch of miracles. We've talked a lot about the miracles where he was on the Sea of Galilee. This is happening around that same time. Last week, we talked about the woman who had bleeding for 12 years. And that story is in the middle of this story. So our context our story starts, and then Jesus kind of takes a side trip, if you will, and talks and interacts with the woman who had the bleeding, like we talked about last week, and then he comes back to our story. All right, so here we go again. I'll start over. Jesus got into the boat again and went back to the other side of the lake, where a large crowd gathered around him on the shore. Then a leader of the local synagogue, whose name was Jairus, arrived. When he saw Jesus, he fell at his feet, pleading fervently with him. "My little daughter is dying," he said. "Please come and lay your hands on her. Heal her so she can live." Jesus went with him, and all the people followed, crowding around him. And then our story from last week kicks in, where Jesus goes and heals the woman who had the bleeding for 12 years. Okay, and then we pick it back up later in verse 35. So Mark 5:35 through 43. While he was still speaking to her, so the woman who was bleeding for 12 years, messengers arrived from the home of Jairus, the leader of the synagogue. They told him, "Your daughter is dead. There's no use troubling the teacher now." But Jesus overheard them and said to Jairus, "Don't be afraid, just have faith." Then Jesus stopped the crowd and wouldn't let anyone go with him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. When they came to the home of the synagogue leader, Jesus saw much commotion and weeping and wailing. He went inside and asked, "Why all this commotion and weeping? The child isn't dead, she's only asleep." The crowd laughed at him, but he made them all leave, and he took the girl's father and mother and his 3 disciples into the room where the girl was lying. Holding her hand, he said to her, "Talitha koum." I probably butchered that, but oh well. Which means, "Little girl, get up." And the girl, who was 12 years old, immediately stood up and walked around. They were overwhelmed and totally amazed. Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell anyone what had happened, and then he told them to give her something to eat. Lots of stuff going on here, right? So going back to the beginning, like I said, this is in the middle of a lot of miracles that are happening. The ones that we've talked about recently over the last 4, 5, 6 weeks have kind of all happened within a few days. And we're kind of right in the middle of that again with this story. So Jairus, a leader of the synagogue, probably because of his position as a leader in the synagogue or the leader in the synagogue, would have at least heard about Jesus, probably heard some of the stories, may have even followed him from place to place occasionally, especially during this time as he's doing all these miracles. And crowds are starting to follow him, and more people are surrounding him. So there's a good chance that he knew the kind of things that Jesus could do. So he comes to him and says, "My little daughter is dying." And so at this point, she's still alive. And all that he wants Jesus to do is to come and lay your hands on her, heal her so she can live. So obviously there's something big going on here. And we find out later in the passage, like we read, that she's 12. And so I have a 12-year-old right now. I have Josiah who's 12. And to think of this father coming to Jesus and begging Jesus to heal his daughter hits a little home to me, because I can't imagine being in that position and having to just kind of be desperate to the point of, I don't have any other option. Like, this is it. This is my only option. This is my only chance for my baby girl to live. It would just be heartbreaking. So we start there, and then after he, like I said, he heals the woman who had the bleeding for 12 years. He then kind of gets back on track, if you will. And then we see that the messengers from the home of Jairus come and they say, it's too late, your daughter has died. Don't bother Jesus anymore. And this is where it really gets kind of juicy, I think. It's really interesting because Jesus, as you can imagine, is hearing what they're saying. And I kind of picture him getting like a grin, like, guess what? I'm going to do something you're not going to believe. It's going to blow your minds. But he also sees it as a teaching moment. Everything that Jesus did, whether it said or healed miracles or whatever it is that he did, there was a teaching moment that went with it, and this is no exception. So Jesus says to them, and then he says this to Jairus, don't be afraid, just have faith. That's a common theme throughout the entire Bible. Don't be afraid, just have faith. Do not be afraid. Fear not. Have faith. Don't be afraid. We hear that with the story of the angels appearing to Joseph and Mary. Don't be afraid. The story of Jesus appearing to the disciples in the locked room as he just walks through the door. Don't be afraid. There's lots of examples where Jesus says, don't be afraid. And this is another one. Don't be afraid, just have faith. That's it. That's all that he needs to do. That's all that they need to do, is to have faith. Have faith in what? Have faith that everything is going to work out. Everything is going to be okay. Have faith that Jesus can do the things that he wants them to do. Okay? So then it says, then Jesus stopped the crowd and wouldn't let anyone go with him except Peter, James, and John. So he wanted this to be a very intimate, very personal, very meaningful and impactful moment. He didn't want it to be shared by a lot of people. He wanted it to be kind of a very special moment. An example of that would maybe be like the birth of a child or something like that. When I had my kids, there weren't many people around. It was just my wife, me, and the baby, and that was it. And it was a very intimate moment. We didn't want anybody else to be around because we wanted to share that moment together with our new child. And this is kind of that same line of thinking, that I'm going to go and I'm going to teach them something, and I want it to be just a select few, because I want it to be that much more meaningful and impactful. So he takes the three in there. When they came to the home of Jairus, when they came to his house, Jesus saw much commotion and weeping and wailing, as could be imagined and should be happening with a 12-year-old just passing away. So there was, just as with anybody that passes away, there's a lot of commotion, crying, weeping, wailing. I think oftentimes more so with a child, because it's just so unexpected. And if any of you have experienced that, whether you've lost your own child, whether you know somebody that has lost a child, I can't imagine the pain and the heartache and just the complete misery at times that comes from that. But that's what was going on here. It was I can imagine a very chaotic scene with a lot of people just trying to figure out, hey, what is going on here? Like, this is just crazy chaos. So it's just a lot of people not knowing what to do. So Jesus walks in and says this, why all this commotion and weeping? The child isn't dead. She's only asleep. So he's just arrived. He's just showed up, and he's saying she's not dead. She's just sleeping. How is he supposed to know that? He just showed up. Some of these people probably don't know who he is, but some of them might. But they're still thinking, okay, we saw her passed away. We know this. We've gone through this whole thing. There's nothing there. She's gone. And then it says the crowd laughed at him, and I can imagine the responses, not like a happy kind of laugh, but like a mocking kind of laugh, and just the like they knew better than Jesus. That's the kind of laugh that they would be giving here. So they're laughing at him, and Jesus, I'm sure, is smiling and laughing himself inside. Like I can imagine he's got that grin, he's got that smirk. Like, guess what? Something's coming. You don't know what's coming. I know what's coming, and you're going to be blown away. So here it goes. And this is what I love about Jesus. Just he does things that we don't expect. So the crowd left, made them all leave, took the girl's father, mother, and Peter, James, and John. So there's 6 people in the room with mom and dad, the 3 disciples, and Jesus. So 6 people. And the girl, so 7. Holding her hand, he said, little girl, get up. Not in the name of me, I command you to rise. Not get up, you're not dead. I just said, little girl, get up. And then it says, immediately she stood up. And that's a common theme that we see throughout a lot of these miracles, is that as soon as Jesus speaks something, or we have the example of the woman touching Jesus's robe. As soon as that happens, immediately, it's better. It's the miracle has happened. It doesn't even take 5 seconds. It's just like that. That's how quick and how amazing and how powerful his healing power is. So she stood up and walked around. Like, it wasn't she stumbled, she may have stumbled, but she was she was gone. And now all of a sudden she's up and running around, and I can imagine as a 12-year-old, she's kind of like, okay, like, what really happened? Like, did this, I don't understand. I don't remember anything. Probably confused, but at the same time, everybody around her would have been doing like this. Like their jaws would be on the floor. They'd be completely surprised, and they just would have no words. They would be completely speechless. And so then Jesus says, then it says, Jesus gave them strict orders not to tell anyone what had happened. Again, he's wanting to use this as a teaching moment for those that were there, but he's also wanting it to be, he's also not wanting the word to spread so quickly that he's only here to do miracles, because he knows that he's here to do much, much more. So that's why he tells them to not tell anybody, because he doesn't want that to get around. As you can imagine, small group of people, things tend to spread quickly, maybe even more so back then, because that's the only way they had to talk. So it was probably just best if it didn't get shared. And then the last thing that is recorded here about this story, then he told them to give her something to eat. Out of all the things that could have happened, out of all the things that could have been recorded there, it says Jesus told the people to give her something to eat. She's hungry. Give her something. She needs her strength. I mean, don't just stand there and stare. Do something. Give her something to eat. And so again, that speaks to the care that Jesus gives to people, that he wants people to have. And as I as I read this, as I got into this, I I picture, and I shared this earlier, but I picture Jesus just. I can't imagine that this surprises him. Like he knows this is going to happen. He knows that this event is going to unfold because he knows everything, right? So I can't imagine that it surprises him. But I get I tend to see it as Jesus just using it as a teaching moment, and he's got that grin, he's got that smile, he's got that smirk, like, hey, I know what's coming, you don't. Just be aware, be ready, if you will. And this is, like I said, this is in the middle of a bunch of miracles. And this is kind of towards the end of that, actually, that over the course of the prior probably 5, 6, 7 days, there were all of these miracles that happened. And the people at this point, if they had been following him the whole time, they would just be blown away. Like, this guy rose somebody from the dead. Like, she was dead, completely gone. And now she's alive. And to think about the impact and the power that has over somebody's line of thinking. We've maybe you've seen movies or TV shows where I even just watched a TV show last night where there was a guy who everybody thought had passed away, everybody thought had died, but he wasn't. He was just very paralyzed by a medical condition and was just there and thought he had passed away. And just the sadness and all that goes with that. But he wasn't, and he eventually woke up. But in this example here, she was very much gone, and to have this happen is just completely blowing a line of thinking out of the water. All right, so I hope that this kind of, I hope that it really just shows you the control, the power that Jesus has over everything. He can even bring somebody back to life. That's just such a powerful, wonderful message to share. All right. Let's pray. God, thanks for today. Thanks for all that you have done for us, for this message that you have shared, that this miracle that you performed, Jesus, one of many that we have recorded, and we know there probably are way more that were not even recorded that you did. We're so thankful for all that, Lord. And we know that you are with us. We know that you bring us comfort when we need it. So help us to seek you and to find you when we need you. We ask all this in your name, Jesus. Amen. All right, guys, have a great week, and we'll see you next week, where it'll be our 1 year anniversary, if you will, of doing this. So we'll see you next week. Have a great week. Bye.